As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded. So it is kind of funny, I said it right after the announcement. I don't know if everyone hears that too or not. So just a reminder that it is being recorded. And also a reminder that we have Spanish interpretation. So one, if you need it, or if someone's speaking Spanish, you need English, you can click the kind of global icon that says interpretation. And then also because of that, reminder to speak slowly. That is important for me and a few others who speak fast like me. I see that all board members are present. And I forgot to say welcome, everybody. Welcome. For those faces that I see, board and staff, and for the faces that I do not see, thank you for joining us this evening. We are now on to item number 2, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion, board?
I move approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Are there any comments on that? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion has passed. We are now on to item 3, comments from the board and superintendent. And I think, Nancy, you usually go first, right?
Yes. So this time I've sent in the majority of my board activities to Jesus so they can be documented and listed in the minutes to try and allow more opportunity for our activity that we have tonight of a discussion. But the one thing I did want to mention for the public is that Sesame Street has paired up with CNN, and they have a wonderful program about rolling back into school. It has portions for preschool and school age, and talking about wearing masks and all sorts and what it's like to be in person or distance learning. And I'd encourage families to watch it together. It's going to be on the 12th of September, which is a Saturday. And what I especially appreciate is that they will have it broadcast simultaneously in English, and then there's a Spanish one as well. And with that, I'll continue on.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for that reminder. We have added on once a month the equity reflections, which we'll talk about more later. But then we also, to make time and space for that, so we don't just extend our meetings, we have talked about making our board and with staff.
Shoot, Michelle, you're going in and out. Is that happening for everybody or just me? Everybody. Okay, we kind of missed that, Michelle. You were going in and out.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me check my internet.
You're good now. I think you said that we're going to try to not have comments, board comments.
Yeah, I just want to check my internet connection. Okay, it's saying it's full, so. So yes, I was just saying our comments will be shorter now to make time for that equity reflections conversation. Okay, if it cuts out again, maybe go like this or something so I know. Thanks. All right, Bridget, go ahead.
Well, I thought we were just talking about cutting out our comments, so I did not send them. And I did a lot of stuff this week, so I don't know. But I'll just give you my update, and you can, next time I'll send them in if we're doing that. But basically, I just wanted to say that I took the lunches over to the homeless shelter, and one of the reasons why I was thinking about not just sending that in is that possibly because we've been talking about it over the summer, there have been a lot of people who've been volunteering to help with that, and you know, to help with the needs of the children that are there, and to help in any way that they can. So one of my thoughts was for us to think about as we're developing the sites for families and opportunities for families is that maybe there are some things around the district where we could utilize volunteers who are maybe they're Zoom ready. I volunteered this week in a classroom at SMS for ELD1 and EL support, just reading with kids and, you know, helping them with their STAR testing, like listening to them while they're reading. And I went to the Facilities Bond Oversight Committee meeting. I worked with the staff appreciation team at SMS on the staff room, basically decorating the whole staff room with comments from families and kids, from like hundreds of children who wrote in, and dozens of families. So that was exciting. And basically, I attended SMS's back to school night. And what I was thinking of during the school night, back to school night, was that some of the teachers pre-recorded their meeting, and that was really helpful and interesting. And also, everything was very welcoming. I know that they're going to have, I think earlier tonight, they were going to have another introduction, like an evening in Spanish. But I was thinking that that might be something, I'd like to hear more about how we're doing that school to school as far as interpretation, because I know that there are many families there who speak Spanish, and I was popping into some of the science, and you know, I watched the woodshop pre-recording, and I thought, wow, if I didn't speak English, this would be really hard for me to access what the teacher's saying. So I was wondering how that's working at other schools. There's some Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts who I'm working with on some projects. Reed, you referred me to a couple of kids, and another student from Homestead reached out to me. So they're doing projects like book drives for Lakewood and San Miguel. And this one student from Homestead is creating art kits for the homeless shelter for students who are there. That'll be social, emotionally positive art kits, and she's working with the people at the shelter, so that's exciting to work with. And then Nancy and I are on the Ledge Action Committee for the CSBA, and that I just wanted to tell you that we're looking, if you know of anybody who's a board member who wants to participate in that. Right now it's sort of organized by geographical areas, so Reed, Michelle, and Jeff, if you know of anybody who is from the east side, from San Jose or one of the east, you know, the eastern geography of Santa Clara County, we would love to have someone from there join us. So that's it. Sorry, it took a minute.
Jeff, do you have anything? You're still on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Just kind of got a couple of things. First, starting off with a bit of a personal note, kind of a apology as well. Last several board meetings, I've noticed, and I was talking to Michelle about this. By the end of the night, I'm kind of in physical pain, and I think the last couple of meetings I've had well over. By the end of the night, I've tacked on well over 12 hours of Zoom, and I'm just trying different strategies throughout the day to manage the work balance and in Zoom. So want to ask for everyone's apology is if I have to engage in some of these activities where I might look a little, you know, I'm trying not to look at the screen, because I've noticed sometimes I think the Zoom practice, you're trying to look engaged and you're looking directly in, you're trying to stay within the confines of the screen. And also sort of the sedentary lifestyle of, you know, over 12 hours of meetings. So I'm going to try to start these different strategies, and I want to assure everybody I'm still engaged in the meetings. I just have to try something different, because at the end of the night, I don't want to be more engaged in hoping the meeting ends soon rather than listening to the content of the meeting. So I would ask for people's patience and appreciate it. On the second note, I like the back to school night for Sunnyvale Middle School. It was pretty imaginative and really engaging, kept my family involved, and I think my daughter enjoyed that experience as well. It's kind of, I think it was more of ended up being more of a full family experience And I think my daughter had fun trying to compare the length of hair, my hair, to Mr. Anchetta's hair. That was the talk of the night. So I think his is a little more luscious and full than mine, but thank you.
That's funny, Jeff. And thank you about Zoom. That is rough. That many hours is just too much. So maybe you could carry your laptop around and like talk to us while you're walking circles in the house. So let's see. Yeah, I also didn't send in my activities. I've been getting all the AXA reminders. I'm not sure if we all are, but I never used to. So I attended the AXA luncheon, and gosh, Mike and our and our other superintendents, that's pretty good. They have some good stuff. So I enjoyed, I'm going to slow down. I enjoyed the AXA luncheon. And the one thing I wanted to share, if any of you don't know, is just the liability legislation. They mentioned that, and we also talked about it in the Santa Clara County School Boards Association meeting, but basically that has been, there's not enough time, that did not go through. So what that means is that school districts will be liable or can be liable if they're sued. So there's no limitation on them getting sued. And the reason is because there's some groups that feel that school districts would not be looking out for our kids' best interest if we cannot get sued, which I just think is so crazy. So I think they're hoping that in January that will be re-looked at. So let's see, what else? I also attended the SMS Back to School night. It looks like they had like almost a full house of board members, at least 4 or 5, which is pretty funny. I tried to go to the Vargas Back to School night and I couldn't quite get into the classrooms. I got to see Catherine for a bit, but for SMS, I originally went to see Rupali because I don't know her and I thought she was going to be doing a little presentation, but instead she was sitting there as for questions and answers. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. I get some time with you. So I got to talk to her and meet her. And then I thought, well, I'm going to talk to the other assistant principals. So I talked to Stephanie and I talked to Jane. So it was really nice to catch up with them. And then I went in and out of classrooms as well. And I did like the recording that some of the teachers did, but I found it so disconcerting when you see their face and then they're talking, but their lips aren't moving. So I was like, what is happening? But I know that a lot of the parents find it very helpful to be able to go back and watch those later. And I have to say, I popped in and out of a bunch of classrooms and I had a lot of people texting me saying, I just saw you. And everybody told me that they loved it. Like they said it was great. And I thought it was so well organized. I mean, I was having so much fun sitting at my desk, just going in and out. So that's that. Let's see. Sunnyvale did an LGBTQ listening session. And I was really proud of them for doing that. And it was super interesting. Like, I did not know that there was this many things happening in Sunnyvale and that there's such a strong LGBTQ support and community. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that's going on. And yeah, I mean, I have more, but I think that's the big stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. And thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you, kind of sharing out, as we talked, right? It's good for all of us to just like share with each other what's going on, right? We all have different challenges right now and different hard things. And I don't know, Jeff, if you're going to do this, but when Jeff and I had talked, I said, hey, if you need to be off screen and just listen in, right? That's right. So the idea of being creative, right? Just like we're asking students to be creative and families to be creative and teachers, right? If us board members need to be creative to fit our needs, right? We can all do that as well.
I do want to thank Michelle for being a good thought partner on that too. I was pretty frustrated one of those nights. I was really I knew I wasn't present, and you were great. You were good with the ideas, and I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So I just wanted to share, I've been doing lots of similar activities as everyone else has, as well as talking to families, just kind of seeing how school is going, right? As there's different challenges for all of us in the various ways helping our students. I wanted to make note, I think all of you board members got an email. I believe Jesus forwarded it earlier this week. But next, this is not just for board members, but for anyone, it's for the public. On Wednesday, September 9th at 7 p.m., the League of Women Voters is having I can't remember the title, but they're doing a COVID-19 and education panel with board members, superintendents, staff, parents from Cupertino School District, Fremont, and then us as well. So Mike and I will be on that. And that's all that I have. So now we are on to Superintendent, Dr. Gallagher.
Thank you. And I'd like to start off by acknowledging the loss that occurred at Columbia Middle School over the weekend. Those of you who may not know, a 13-year-old student from Columbia Middle School was tragically killed in an automobile accident late night Saturday night, early morning Sunday on Central Expressway. From what I understand, she leaves behind her mom, who's a single mom. So I can't imagine anything more painful or tragic than that. I talked to Mr. Poe several times during the week, and he refers to the Columbia staff as a family. And I really, really appreciate that, the approach that he's taking there. And that family is coming together to support that girl's family. And I think that's wonderful. And I know I can see that there's several Columbia Middle School staff members in our audience tonight. And I just want you to know that we're all thinking about you. We're all thinking about your community. And we've been working with Mr. Poe and just are ready to offer any kind of support that we can. So I just wanted to acknowledge that tonight. I think that's important. Just a couple other quick announcements. Thanks partly to Bridget. She initiated a wonderful meeting that occurred today with Polly Bove, the superintendent of Fremont, and me, and Naomi, board member from Fremont. So first of all, I just love the collaboration. And this particular collaboration is around supporting students who are in the shelter and coming up with strategies, perhaps developing a pod with a partnership with the city of Sunnyvale so that they will have a safe, respectful place to engage in learning during the day. And then we're also gonna look at how we can continue to support their nutrition. You know, if we're able to do that on our campus, perhaps at Columbia Neighborhood Center, that will be much more seamless for us to do there, and also, of course, to provide mental health services, whatever services we can garner. So that was a fantastic meeting. Again, I just love that we're partnering with the high school district, and to me, those kids are really, really important. And what we're going to do, like as a next step, is to reach out through our social workers to the families themselves and ask them what kind of support or what kind of program they would like to have.
Darles qué tipo de apoyo necesitan las familias. Y entonces, otra cosa.
COVID-19 testing today. I don't know exactly how many people were tested, but I was. Today was at the Columbia multi-purpose room. Looked like they were doing one person after another. For those of you who are staff members in the audience, the next one is the 17th, and there's information going out around that. We strongly encourage you to get the test. It's very easy, it's very painless, it's self-administered. So like I think we all heard stories about like painful tests at the beginning. It was not painful at all. It's a very simple swab you just put around each nostril real quickly. So that again is on the 17th, and we're going to do it every month for our staff. Thanks, Michelle, for mentioning the League of Women Voters event. And I think that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We are now on to item 4, comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association.
I don't see Wendy this time.
Is there someone else who might be representing?
Jeremy, do you recognize any names?
Yes, there's a couple of staff members, but I'm unclear if they're in what capacity they're speaking. So
If we could maybe ask the 4 who have raised their, I know it's just hard to communicate, the 4 who have raised their hand, or Aaliyah, can people message you? Okay, so if you guys could just lower your hands for a moment, so if anyone is here speaking on behalf of Sunnyvale Education Association, we will know. Okay, looks like none then. So you guys can just keep your hands lowered for just a moment, and then you guys can re-raise them again. All right, comments from the California School Employees Association. We'll give it just a minute if there is somebody here. Raise your hand if there's someone from that association. And we're not seeing anybody, any names, right?
No.
Okay. People can raise your hands again. Thank you for helping us with that so we could see. A little trickier in the virtual world. Okay, we are now on to item 6, comments from the public. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public. However, provisions of the Brown Act preclude any action being taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes per topic. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. And then just as a reminder, there will be time for public comment on agendized items during each agenda item. So this portion of public comment is usually for items that are not on the agenda, because there will be opportunity when we get to the agenda items. So if there are any public comments now, if you could please use the raise hand feature. And then reminder, again, you don't need to use the whole 3 minutes, but you have 3 minutes. And then Leah, why don't we just get started? And if there's anyone else who wants to raise their hand in the next few moments, they can.
Definitely. So I have up first Reese Poston, and then Michelle Koo, and then Gray Ponciano. So Reese, I will go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharice Poston. I'm a teacher at Columbia Middle School. I'm wanted to speak today directly to all of you. As a teacher, as someone who loves teaching, I'm having just a wonderful time with my students, even in Zoom school right now. But I just wanted to speak directly to you about the 4 principles that are guiding us through this time: safety, equity, flexibility, and high quality teaching and learning. I wanted to focus on high quality teaching and learning today because at the middle school level, right now it's feeling very, very difficult to uphold that standard because of how little prep time middle school teachers are given. Every teacher I've talked to, both at CMS and SMS in the past couple of weeks, has just told me that they are drowning, working 13-hour days, just really trying to keep up to provide these great things that our students deserve, engaging lessons and like social emotional support, and we're drowning. It's unsustainable. I'm not the only person who feels this way, and I think that this is a crisis we're having and that it needs to be addressed, and I wanted to bring it directly here so that you're aware of what's going on, especially at the middle school level. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharice. Michelle Koo, you're up, and then Gray Ponciano, you're next. Can't hear you for some reason, Michelle.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Great. Sorry about that. Good evening, school board. My name is Michelle Koo. I'm a middle school teacher at CMS. I'd like to echo what Sharice Poston just shared. Based on the sample schedules that were given out for elementary and middle school, I think part of this overwhelm may be stemming from middle school teachers teaching significantly more in live instruction and having less planning time. So that may be part of it. I also wanted to bring up the 30-minute middle school lunch. I know I brought it up last time, but I didn't hear it adequately addressed. I'm hopeful this is being reevaluated behind the scenes. I live in Sunnyvale School District boundaries, so I decided to test it out. It took me 11 minutes to walk to the closest school and 11 minutes to walk home. That would give students 8 minutes to wait in line to pick up their food, eat, use the restroom, and take a quote unquote break. Many of the students who rely on these meals have parents who are working during the day and unable to pick up lunches for students. Many of you are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The foundation is physiological needs such as food and water. It's important to remember, until we handle Maslow, we can't get to blue. Now, I kindly request that you click on the interpretation icon in Zoom and select Spanish for the next 10 seconds. This year, I have 6 students who are classified as newcomers and are learning the basics of English. We are asking a lot of them to learn grade level math from home, considering they have low levels of English proficiency and many are significantly below grade level in math. Please feel free to turn off interpretation and continue in English. I wanted you to experience how confusing and frustrating this would be for newcomers. In regular school, it's possible for table groups to help translate instructions and for me to check it. However, in a virtual model, a peer cannot whisper to relay information. This week, I tested the interpretation feature with my bilingual educator. It worked smoothly in our trial, but when we tried it in class, the students were unable to turn on the translation. We have since learned that interpretation feature on Zoom does not work on Chromebooks, which is the device that was distributed to CMS students. I'm requesting that an alternate device be lent to students in ELD 1 and 2 so they can utilize the interpretation feature, and also would like to point out that families that are attending this current board meeting using the school issued Chromebook,
please wrap up your thoughts. Thank you.
Are not able to access translation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up is Gray Ponciano and then Sarah Nielsen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gray Ponciano, and I'm a 4th and 5th grade Juntos teacher at San Miguel. As a BIPOC teacher, one of your few Black teachers, and maybe, I'm not really sure, but maybe your only Black Afro-Latina teacher, I want to share some of my thoughts from last week's board meeting, specifically about what was said about our equity plan. I was frankly very confused by the lack of urgency on our equity plan. And as it was evaluated, I heard a couple of times that it was not meant to add any additional work or burden onto the teachers, that we already do most of it already, that this plan essentially highlights all the good work we already do. Don't get me wrong, I really appreciate how you always make an effort to value and consider us as teachers. But if the plan mostly consists of what we already do, what's its purpose? Our suspension and expulsion rates show a racial and ethnic inequity, and so does our data for students recommended for SPED services. Whatever we're doing right now, as gray as it is obviously not enough. And an equity plan that does not propel us forward, and I'm really sorry to say this, but if it doesn't propel us forward, how useful can it be? One of our board members presented the idea of adding anti-racist into our equity plan. And I was really, really excited. I honestly was just waiting for that clear language that would guide us or guide our district to the kind of equity that we currently do not have. And this seemed like a no-brainer to me, yet somehow that contribution was walked around. And maybe it's my fault. Maybe the purpose of an equity plan isn't what I think it is. Maybe it's more to introduce something that's simpler, that will get high approval, something quote unquote, maybe neutral. But if anti-racist is a controversial term in our district, is this really a safe space for teachers like me? And is this really a safe place for BIPOC students? Again, I really appreciate how you speak of us as teachers and how you try not to add any more to our plates. But when you don't add clear language to an equity plan, you leave all of the burden of initiating that kind of work on us. And it's already very challenging to be a Black teacher in this district. Anti-racist, culturally and historically responsive teaching isn't additional work. Restorative justice isn't additional work. It is the work, and it's our whole purpose. Every day I'm trying to protect my students' potential and resilience so it's not wasted on oppressive systems, and I don't want our district in any way to be one of those systems. You are all leaders. I look to you to be courageous and prioritize the decisions, the practices, and even the terms that will allow our district to be supportive, more supportive of BIPOC teachers, but more importantly, finally allow my BIPOC students to thrive. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much, Gray. And next up is Sarah Nielsen.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. I am a math teacher, second year in this district at Sunnyvale Middle School. I came here specifically, well, I'm really glad I got to hear the other teachers that got to speak, and I want to thank them for giving their time tonight. I thought that was awesome. I'm here to speak specifically about the synchronous live instruction time at the middle school. And honestly, I've been talking to my admin and I wasn't really sure. They felt like the decision was kind of out of their hands. And so I wanted to come and see what the deal was and whether it actually is out of their hands. I am concerned with the number of live instruction minutes that both middle schools are experiencing. It's a lot of Zoom time. And one thing that I know our school is starting next week is we've removed the tutorial time period that we've been doing this week and last week. And tutorial was a time for students to go to any teacher that they needed help with, they needed a question answered, and it was that last period of the day. And we're switching that because we need to take attendance and because we need to know that students are there. We need to meet state live instruction minutes, something like that. We're switching it so that it's a study hall, that it is following immediately after fifth period, and I have to keep students on Zoom for another hour. They can have their cameras off, but they have to be there, maybe, if their cameras are off, I don't know. I just wanted to express I really, really have valued that tutorial time last week and this week because I've had students be able to, there is very little one-on-one time we get in these Zoom classes, and that tutorial time is the time where I felt like I actually get to know my students the most because they can come, they can get help, they can ask questions, I can chat with them a little bit. And so I don't know the intricacies of that. I don't know whether it has to be synchronous minutes. If it could be asynchronous minutes, we can still meet that state mandate. But I do know that without that time, I don't know how I'm gonna support some of my other classes if I don't have that tutorial time with them. So I'm hoping there is some way to problem solve that and still have that time built into the day so students can get the help that they need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And next up is Evie Elwood.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So thank you for taking the time to hear for those of us that are on the front lines right now. I just wanted to second the voices of all those who have shared already. And sorry, my cat's meowing in the background. And I wanted to remind the entire board and our district admin about the flexibility pillar of virtual learning. As other teachers have mentioned, our staff is facing an unprecedented challenge and workload that we definitely didn't foresee over the summer. Our group of teachers that are here today, and more of us have brought these concerns not only to the board, but also to our union and our administrators. And when we brought this concern about our lack of planning time or lack of prep time or lack of time to give feedback to students to our admin, we were informed that we would be losing more of our afternoon planning time to recurring scheduled meetings. So we're hoping that all of the parties that have the power to make these changes consider flexibility in lessening teacher workloads and required Zoom time. As you know, the board also mentioned being on Zoom for 12 hours a day is not sustainable, and it's going to lead to teacher burnout. So yeah, please consider the flexibility in alleviating our schedules and lessening any additional burdens to teachers beyond what we already have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that all of them, Aaliyah?
Yes,
you.
looks like.
Thank you. Thank you for all those who shared. We are now on to number 7, well, 7A, review and discussion, the public hearing continuity and attendance plan. Learning continuity and attendance plan. Sorry, missed a word there. The LCP. All right, I think we're with Miss Ahuja, right?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. Is someone going to start the presentation, please? Whoever has the screen.
Screen sharing's available.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and take care of it?
I don't have the presentation. My apologies.
It's in the agenda. Okay, I can open it right here. Is that visible to all? Yes, okay, perfect. So I'm just going to share a short presentation to capture the essence of our detailed learning continuity and attendance plan. As you may have realized when reading through, it captures what has been shared over the course of the summer, as well as updates that were continuously shared based on the guidelines that we kept receiving. And even though it's a very comprehensive account, there is no way to capture the hours of work put in by our staff to be responsive to the needs of the students and families we serve. So I'll start a little bit with an overview. I want to also acknowledge that this was definitely a team effort and many hands contributed to this work. Some you may hear from to answer questions that you have this evening. And there are many others whose voices will not be heard, but their efforts are embedded in the pages of the document. And I want to share my appreciation to them. The major goal of this plan is to capture the impact of the pandemic. So basically to ensure that there is continuity of instruction and describe how students have access to a full curriculum of substantially similar quality, regardless of the method of delivery, whether it's in person or through distance learning. The ultimate goal, as we all have agreed, is in-person learning when conditions are, favorable towards that. And the steps towards accomplishing this have been described in detail along with all the safety measures that will need to be in place for that to occur. So I want to speak a little bit about lessons learned since spring, and the major theme on this topic would be to focus on depth. So rather than having an array of technology tools, really narrowing down the tools that are used to go deeper. Depth in identifying the priority standards for mastery rather than coverage of all standards, focusing on formative assessments to drive instruction, increasing student engagement, and basically re-looking at the way we do things. So it's not a virtual replica of in-person teaching, because as all the teachers, the ones that are here and the ones in classrooms can attest to, that's not what it is. It's really reinventing how you teach. Definitely how our guiding principles provide the framework that we use for all our decision making. And you will see examples of this embedded in the plan as we go along. So the next few slides are going to reflect a little bit on the various components. This is not in the order of how they appear in the plan, as some categories have been grouped together. And all the details can be found in the plan, which is available on our website. So we're going to start with some health and safety considerations. These are paramount and include PPE, cleaning and maintenance protocols. There's a lot of emphasis, of course, on teaching and learning. Details about the distance learning program, and details about how we will bridge to in-person learning. In prior board meetings, we have shared the concept of phases to build up to having all students on campus and starting small and building from there. And again, the focus is on how instruction is going to continue and not be interrupted for our students. What instructional tools and materials we're going to use to ensure that takes place, and also with the accountability measures measure how feedback and grading is considered. As you recall, in spring, that was not considered essential, and that was eliminated, but it is back not just at the state level because it's a mandate, but because as in good teaching, we know that giving students feedback is really important, and providing grades helps with them progress monitoring. Next, we're going to talk about a little bit, the plan talks about supports for pupils with unique needs, and these are focused on English learners, pupils with exceptional needs, foster youth, and homeless youth are definitely addressed. Addressing learning loss. This is the state terminology. The items in the plan here that are covered include ways in which learning is measured, the tools that we use, and the frequency of administration. We strive really hard to find the balance and are very committed to focusing on assessment for learning rather than assessment of learning. Our growth mindset approach is on addressing needs as they arise with a just-in-time approach rather than a just-in-case they've missed approach. And the expectation, and this really supports our whole growth mindset perspective. When we're looking at students, we're not looking at students with a deficit learning of what they may have lost, but rather just going ahead with grade level curriculum and providing them supports in time. The expectation is very clear that it has to include all curricular areas, but specifically mentioned are the focus on English language arts, English language development, and math. In the outreach and engagement portion, stakeholders, pupils, and families, the outreach takes place with all stakeholders. How did we engage pupils to participate? What processes do we have for tiered re-engagement when they do not attend? Because we know that increases the risk of learning loss. In Sunnyvale, we provided multiple opportunities to hear from the variety of stakeholders. These forums included surveys, a community forum. We know there were several board meetings, and there was a large group of people in attendance there. We had a reopening advisory committee, weekly meetings with the bargaining unit leads, and parent feedback forums targeted at summer school and ESY families to specifically ask what their experience was and how we could make adjustments to meet their needs. So in the arena of making sure we meet all needs, we are responsible for and have accounted for meeting all needs by being responsive to access to devices and connectivity. Robin and Jeremy have been sharing numbers, devices, almost 5,000 devices have been checked out to families, and over 900 hotspots distributed. We know that we've initiated an independent study program serving about almost 300 students, again, being responsive to community requests. Nutrition, we want to make sure that our students are adequately fed, and looking at the mental health and social emotional well-being of our families and our students, of course, are really important. And we do have, among many other ways that we support this, having a district culture and climate team, formerly known as PBIS, to support behavioral, social, emotional learning and an awareness of culturally relevant teaching, which we know is extremely valuable. The target groups that we focus on to make sure that we're not losing sight of our English learners, foster youth, and students from low socioeconomic backgrounds. That, as you know, is the focus of the LCAP. And in this learning continuity and attendance plan, we have to show how increased and improved actions specifically directed at the target groups are listed, and the funding that's associated with them made transparent. So we are all aware. There is no way the plan encompasses everything that we do, but it shines a light on the roadmap that we have in place to make sure the learning continues. The students are supported, the families are supported, the teachers are supported through professional development means, and then it's a seamless transition to when in-person learning takes place again. So I know you may have a lot of questions. We'll stop here, and I'm going to invite the respective people responsible for those portions based on the questions you ask to address them. Thank you.
So board, I think what we'll do, if there's any like kind of clarifying questions or things that you want, we can ask those now, and then we'll do the public hearing. And then after the public hearing, we can ask more questions and discuss more then. So is there any questions, board members?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go Nancy and then Bridget.
Okay. So I know that this was written before the law changed, where we have more flexibility now about feeding students. I would like to see our plan reflect that there's more flexibility now in trying to meet the needs of when we can offer food and to whom we can offer food to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes.
And adding on to that, you know, I did a little digging with other board members, like in neighboring districts, and it seems like several of them have, I think we talked about a little bit last time, but I forwarded the board a couple of, you know, schedules just as a factual thing. But not only have the other districts like rolled out the new information already to people that lunches are now free, school lunches is now free if you're 18 or under, no questions asked. But additionally, just the fact that other districts have figured out how to do a one-day delivery of 7 days of food, and that would really address this issue with middle school having 30 minutes for lunch. And I think in the paperwork that we got from our questions from the board packet that we reviewed ahead of time, it looks like we're having about half the amount-ish of people taking lunch than they would, who normally would get free and assisted lunch. We're selling about half as many lunches as we normally would. And honestly, at the middle school, I was there today in the staff room, and they said, yeah, today is a really good day because we've sold 2 instead of this week we were selling 1 lunch all week. And there's, you know, they want to do a good job and work. And, you know, the lady said, at least when the kids were here, we could clean everything all the time. So I would really like to see us get a handle on that, because I feel like the kids who are most in need of a nutritious meal, a nutritious free meal, we're just not delivering it in a way where they can access it right now.
So Bridget, if I can just kind of jump in. So Lori and I met this afternoon, and we're putting together a plan. We're trying to learn from the other districts. Like I know, like Fremont, for example, has been delivering food in the evenings, and they're going to stop that next week because that wasn't working for them.
But they'll still have a 1 day a week model, right?
Yeah, and we're leaning against that, because what they get is 1 warm meal and the rest frozen. So we'd like to see if there's a way we can do it similar to the way we were doing it in late spring and throughout the summer, because we were getting good participation then.
But the kids weren't in school then. That's right. My issue, is that the kids weren't.
What we're going to do is we're going to extend the hours. And we have to look at the middle school. I mean, that's certainly a thing, because like they have a small period of time. But we're going to have longer hours than the other districts do, like 10:30 to 1:30, something like that, in the middle of the day. And we're going to experiment at one school to make it even longer than that, to see if that works. So, and we're also limited. We can't do the seamless summer. Is that what it's called? It's not endless summer, seamless summer. Seamless summer, we can't do that at every school currently, but Lori is investigating if we can get another waiver that allows us to do that. For example, Fremont serves only at 3 schools. We'd like to be able to do this at all 10 schools, but we're not allowed to at this point under the current regulations, but we're going to investigate that. I don't know, Lori, did I miss anything with that?
No, that's correct. Actually, we've already applied for the waiver, but just because participation is so low, I wouldn't consolidate the team and do all 10. So it will be 1 middle school and 5 elementary schools. And like Mike said, we're going to experiment with 1 service window that's longer. And
The service window being long, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're going to alternate the staff to protect them a little bit more so that they'll have 1 week on and 1 week off so that they won't be as exposed to the public as everybody's serving every day.
I guess my thought is, from talking to people who would normally access that program, the issue is that the parents are often either working or they have little kids to throw in the car or the stroller or whatever to go over and get the lunch. And the middle schooler, like, even if you extended the day 10:30 to 2, the middle schooler is in class at that time, right? Like, there's no way unless their parent goes. And by like 4th, 5th grade, a lot of parents, even if they were stay-at-home moms earlier, or dads, like, they're back in the workforce. Like, you know, those kids are relied upon to be more independent. So,
Bridget, we have the same interests. We want to serve all the kids. We want to serve them as much as we can, and we want to serve them nutritious meals that are that they want to eat. So what we're doing, we're expanding the program, and we're going to keep trying different things until we get there. So we absolutely have all the things you're saying. We completely agree with. It's just how to get there, and we're adjusting. It's part of the flexibility. We're adjusting as we go along.
And Nancy, I just want to acknowledge that the plan, we will reflect the flexibility in the nutritional section.
I appreciate this. It's been a really dynamic situation. And I also appreciate that one size doesn't fit all. And that's what I think both you and Bridget were saying. And it's a matter of being responsive to see what meets more needs of the families that we want to serve.
And I just want to echo, I appreciate, right, it is a tricky, before this waiver that just came out in the last few days, everyone in the county, right, had super low numbers. So one, I'm grateful for everyone who, you know, pushed the federal government. So now we have this waiver. So now hopefully things will get better. And I do echo, I know we're all working on it, right? But I think middle school, that's the trickiest spot, right? I think the elementary will probably not be as tricky, but figuring out that middle school, right? Because the elementary students have a longer window of that asynchronous, right? Yes, asynchronous. But then the middle schoolers, that is a tricky, right? There really is just, even my son who had 30 minutes today, by the time he like finished up what he was doing with his class and like got some stuff taken care of, he came downstairs and had like 10 or 15 minutes to make his lunch, right? So I helped him really fast. Even that is tricky, right? So I appreciate that we are doing what we can to try to be creative to work on that, because it is definitely tricky. Okay, other questions, board members at this point?
Yeah, I had another one.
Unless, yeah, go ahead,
did you want to go? Because I kind of said something. Okay, so I wanted to talk about teacher, well, 2 things: support for families and teacher training. So, you know, on my question was like, were the workshops this summer recorded? And the answer was, well, we archived the slides and notes, but they wanted, like, cited against the teacher, you know, because they wanted it to be interactive. And I just wanted to say that, like, we didn't record those training sessions. We had 240 teachers participate, but we have 375 teachers. And like, I think just going forward, any training sessions that we have that we can possibly record would just be such a valuable asset for our district. I think it's a missed opportunity if we don't record them, because if I cannot attend a webinar, but they will send me the recording of it afterwards, I can listen to that while I'm walking my dog or doing the dishes or, running an errand, like I can listen to that, or I can like sit down and watch something and watch the presentation. And even though I'm not a part of it, I can hear the conversation of my peers. And I just would really encourage us as a district to record. That's my feedback for that. And then,
may I address that?
Yeah,
please. I totally hear you. And this is the fine line that we walk because we're doing it for our teachers, and we're also being responsive to our teachers who have very clearly said to us that it would stop them from speaking and interacting if they knew their voice was being recorded. So that's the balance that we're trying to achieve. Is it better for the ones who missed it to be able to access it, or do we want full and complete participation and not have people feel conscious about asking questions because someone may hear them and recognize their voice and they may, feel judged by it. So I can't, that's really the balance we're trying to accomplish.
Well, I respect that, but I also feel that there are ways to work around that where people can ask questions in the chat, and there can be a moderator who reads the questions, so no one has to know who's asking the question. And I feel like, this is an important enough, deliverable for our staff that, we are behind the wheel. We're behind a little bit on this, the teachers, you can hear them scrambling, the ones who came, and people are positive and things are going well overall. But, when you just think about that time factor, I would just really encourage us to see what we can record and ways to do that. And my other question is about the tech support for the families, because I feel like there probably is a lot of teacher and site time that's being dealt with a lot of the same things. So I'm wondering what the plan is for making the family accessible website more robust, or if there'll be a talk line, a warm line, a help line, like what our plan is for supporting families who are struggling with not just connectivity, but also applications, turning in assignments, all that stuff, where right now everything is falling on the classroom teacher, and the website is not, it's not super helpful. So people are spending hours on the phone with each child that's experiencing trouble.
To help me understand, so what you're kind of asking is like having more supports, like tech related support, so it's not falling on teachers to do the tech support. Is that what you're kind of asking?
Right, because for example, at a site, the librarian will often check out the devices like the hotspots and the Chromebooks or the iPads. But then if there's a technical support issue, that falls back, that's being forwarded to the teacher. And, if the kid is not responding, the teacher is following up with the phone calls, and the teacher is having a one-on-one tutorial, sometimes for over an hour, maybe a couple hours with one family to support them. And, we're hearing all this idea about like creating a rigorous education. And I looked at the online webpage that we've provided for families, and I think Mike and I had a great conversation about how that might have been okay when we weren't a distance learning school. Like we are independent study and distance learning school right now, a virtual school. And right now we just have so many more devices out there and more applications. And the support page will have like a flat paper to support an iPad, and then maybe a video from 2010 to talk about new features of Zoom. I mean, it's not super helpful. And so I think if we could get that in line, if there could be a way to service families, like I feel very strongly we need a stronger plan around this.
Tasha, yeah.
Well, I can't speak to every classroom in the district. I can speak to quite a few of them. on some of the interventions that are occurring that are not on the teacher. So I'll start with the most intimate area at this moment for me, and that's independent study. So the teachers are doing a lot, but we are also reaching out and working with families. The instructional coach, Cara, has been great with families. We have solicited the trainers for the program that we're using, and we're actually working with families who have questions. Sharmila, who is in our district office and a student technician, she's been working with different families and answering questions and addressing their targeted needs when they come in. So we've kind of given them a way by which to address their needs. I'm getting those messages directly as well. And then we are then going and doing the research for them. So who should they talk to? What do they need? And helping them to access so that we reduce that stress to families that may have it, whether it be understanding the information that's been provided or the tool that they have and how to use it, et cetera. I will further say that our psychologists and even our social workers have also been working with some of the special groups across their campuses, trying to do that field work for parents who have questions and trying to be a link to teachers who are communicating with their principals and et cetera. So I cannot say that every classroom in the district is reaching each and every parent, but I can say that other ways are being addressed that may not be on a website or may not be in a plan, because the plan is one thing, the day-to-day action and what needs to take place are always quite different. So I will agree with you, and I think the team will definitely do that as well. And we're constantly looking at ways on how to be more targeted in those supports, with also at the same time not being overbearing and insulting to families. So I will say some hand holding is happening, and it is happening besides with the classroom teachers.
But who's responsible for the website? Who's responsible for that?
Are you referring to the one that Jonathan Watts created?
Sure. Okay. Is that the family resources with the Clever and the, you know, how to log in?
And that was just meant, it's not a one end all be all, as Tasha was saying. It is a tool. It is a resource. But I hear what you're saying at the same time that.
So I'll just put in that he just created the one in response to the one parent tech training that he took on upon himself, but it's definitely not part of the.
Looks like it's catching up.
Well, I think it would be great if that was created off of like one training that Jonathan Watts did, and that training is on there. I think that's great. And I would just like to see that more robust, because I think that, you know, I think it would really help a lot. I think that the kind of environment we're in right now, I think it would be useful. So.
But I think it's helpful to remember, and this is what I feel like is tricky, is I'm not disagreeing with like pretty much most of what you said, Bridget, but I also know we are asking teachers, family, staff at site levels, staff at district levels to do way more than they've ever done before, right? And right, we're saying create a whole new food program, create a whole new, right? So I think we need to be a little bit patient as we're working through this, and it's going to take time to get it where we want it to be.
I agree, but I feel like, you know, there've been some, like, we're a little bit behind, right? So like every district helpful as new people, I know, but it would be helpful as new people come in, or just to have a resource for teachers to point them to. I'm just saying, like, I would really like to see that built up, or to have a plan so it's not just, it's going to be taken care of at the site.
I think this is a useful conversation. I mean, I think, Bridget, you're bringing up a lot of things that are relevant and legitimate issues, and our teachers that spoke tonight brought up a lot of relevant and legitimate issues, and it's definitely not perfect. I thought the plan that Mala put together, with obviously the help of everybody, was very, very detailed, and I really appreciated sort of having the bird's eye view of, it's not even bird's eye view, it's more of a detailed view of everything that's happened to date, where we are, how we got here. And if you look at how much things have improved just over the past month, you know, I feel like if we take where we are here, we look at where we were there, we look at where we are here, where we're going, there's so much more opportunity to do better. And I just hope, you know, we can take what you're saying and what our teachers are saying and make it better and fix everything that we possibly can. And I know it's a Herculean task. And I know everybody from Mike on down is working to no end, our parents too, trying to be parents and teachers and, you know, and employees as well. Like the whole situation is so difficult. So I just appreciate where we are and the fact that we all have our heart in the right place. And that's what makes me feel so good about this district and this group of people, is that every single one of us here tonight cares so deeply and wants it to work. And I know we'll do everything we can to make it as good as we can, and it still won't be perfect. But thank you for your passion, Bridget, and for bringing up things that are relevant, you know, and I know it's hard. I mean, it's hard to hear it, and it's hard to hear some of the things that people are saying about what's not working, and it's painful, but you know, we're going to do the best we can.
But I thought you did a great job of capturing everything. I just had those like couple areas where I'm just like, oh, please, let's talk about this. We got to do better here. But
Well, they matter. Those are super important things. They matter, Bridget. So it's okay. You know, it's good.
And I would remember of how we started out this journey. We weren't perfect last spring, but we got better at it. And now we're in a new model and we're working through it and we're going to get better at it. So it's that growth mindset. But I appreciate you pointing out some areas for growth.
Yeah, and I would say the technology area, we're kind of moving through phases that we can anticipate, but not really because we've never done it before, right? So for example, hotspots, right? So we upped our order by a lot. And then Jeremy kept walking into my office a couple times a day saying, we need 50 more, we need 50 more, we need 50 more. And now we're up to over 950 hotspots, and then it's getting them out to families. And then we learned from the spring, it's not just getting them out to families, we have to teach them how to do it. So there's all that. And then the devices, like getting all the devices out, wasn't perfect, but we've got how many devices? Almost 5,000.
And now that we have this information about the Chromebooks not working with translation services on Zoom, like, are we going to follow up on that? Because that for the EL1 and EL2, is there a way for us to, I mean, does that work on the iPads or?
Well, we'll look into it. I don't think that's something we can solve right here, but yeah. So now we're at the stage where like, okay, the tech is pretty much all out there. Mm-hmm. It's not all working perfectly. Some of it, like that's not, you know, family user error. That's something else. But some of it is, and some of it's like, what are the apps you should turn off in your whole house to make the internet work better? Things like that. So, and we're trying to come, and what our thinking is, you know, there's hardware issues, there's network issues, there's app issues. Where does that go in our organization? We're trying to sort, this is kind of what we talked about, Bridget. So yeah, we need to kind of sort that out and figure out who could be in charge of it. And, you know, come up with like little protocols for that. And that's the work we're doing at this phase, now that we got the devices out and people are using everything. So, I mean, your questions are right on.
Yeah, because then if we had the, because this document is supposed to be for like really targeting as one of the groups, that group, right? The English learners.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, board, for the comments. Any other comments or questions? Looking through it, I don't think I see any. I just had one that I kind of, and maybe we talked about a little bit, and Mike actually just said one that reminded me of this question of, it was, I can't remember which section it was in the LCP, but it was kind of about lessons learned from the spring. And I was interested to just spend a few minutes kind of explicitly kind of, if you guys could share some of the lessons, just like Mike shared one about the hotspots, right? So if there are a few other kind of lessons that we learned from the spring, and then I know we also learned stuff from the summer. So not, I mean, we could spend hours talking about it, but just a couple minutes I'd love to hear a few of those kind of lessons learned that have been helpful as we've started this school year.
So I can share, I shared it right in the beginning of the presentation, but I can share it again. A few of them, and I'm sure the others may have things they want to share. But I talked about a few things in instruction, like one of them was focusing on depth, talking about narrowing down the variety of tech tools we're using. So really focusing on the purpose and what they are, so we could have that. Identifying some priority standards for mastery. So we're not doing coverage of all standards. We're really going in depth again. Those were some of the lessons, and really looking at how we can increase student engagement while balancing the goal of rigor in instruction. Re-looking at the way we do things. So we're not just looking at this is how we taught, now we're just going to do it online, because that doesn't work. Like if you remember the SAMR model, right? When we're going from pen and paper to doing word processing or doing stuff on the computer. So it wasn't just a one-for-one shift. It was teaching virtually is a whole different way of teaching. So teachers are spending hours creating, like a 1 hour lesson takes about 3 or 4 hours to create, because it's a different way of teaching. So those are some of the ones I can say from through the lens of curriculum and instruction that we've definitely focused on.
And then I would just kind of add the other big area that we've learned. Majority of our staff had never engaged in teletherapy services. I mean, most of them did not go into this profession to be working with clients on a screen. So that in and of itself was a bit of a culture shock to many of them. So rethinking their philosophies, their perceptions. And I will say that through this process, what we have learned is, with regards to some of those students and even families, that while the virtual has a lot of hurdles and challenges it's presented, we've also found that it's a tool we're going to be using forever, because it has worked very well for some families and students. The other thing we've learned, why we didn't do it, I don't know in retrospect, but sometimes just holding particular meetings with families and trying to require them to come in, well, we don't have to require them to come in and engage them, given their work schedules, given other family responsibilities. So some things that are a hurdle and challenge that we didn't know before have actually become things that will be a part of our repertoire moving forward, because they're actually going to improve our capacity and our reach on how we deliver services, when we deliver the services, and actually our capacity potentially to even expand access, even for like our parent education. We've had many more families being engaged in some of those things with the new tools, because they can be at home with their young kids and still go to the presentation. So there's a lot of really nuanced types of things that we've learned as professionals that's going to increase our capacity to do the work and be better professionals in our different expertise areas.
And then from our lens, I think the spring, working with our employee organizations and kind of trying to become in constant contact. I know a lot of times negotiations is viewed as kind of a finite thing where you try to accomplish a task and then be done and move on. I think Mike started the conversations constantly from March, as soon as, and I think we kept joking that we were meeting weekly, and it was getting a little, I guess we enjoyed seeing each other, but it was getting like we were meeting on a constant basis. So to be honest, we kept that going.
Daily at first.
Daily, yes, that is correct. Sorry, I forgot about those good times. But all kidding aside, I think that's what served us well over the summer, from the relationships that we had, the ongoing communication and dedication, shared interest to each other as well as the students, got us to this point and open and to here. And so I think that seems to be maybe a little bit of a process thing, but I don't want to state that fact that it is really a strength of Sunnyvale, and we want to make sure we keep that commitment going. And so just based off of the feedback we got tonight, we are still meeting with our associations now on a weekly basis to really address and see how these are how now that we've implemented certain things and how it's actually being received. So it's a very similar cycle to what instruction does with your cycle of inquiry about you review the data, implement an intervention, and then review what happens. And so I don't want to understate that. And we're trying to do that in real time with our employees. And then from the system side, I think just the big takeaway, and Mike alluded to it with the connectivity, I did get questions like we had only 250 hotspots requested in the spring. And what happened? Why are we up to 1,000? And I think the lessons learned are, the more quote accountability that the state and we put on ourselves is really what makes the difference with the expectations for attendance, the expectations on connectivity, and especially, the hard work that the teachers are doing with increasing the high quality instruction. We're getting a lot of feedback from students, or actually parents, on the independent study at first who were just deathly afraid of the distance learning that we experienced in the spring. And as we worked together with them and we've kept in communication to clear the wait lists, some are actually finding that, virtual school is working for them. And so as Mala and Tasha shared, we're meeting the needs of roughly 250 students in independent study. But if you recall, the demand was upwards of almost 400, and how we were able to close that gap was with communication and the fact that we raised the kind of that expectation across the board for attendance and what the actual virtual school program was. And so lastly, I think lessons learned too in the spring was and Mala touched on this too, we're just really trying to simplify our offerings in technology. We had not so much coherence around the devices, applications, and training. And I think we've touched on this already tonight, but we've made great strides in already simplifying that so that we're actually being able to focus on the use of the tool and not what what tool we're actually trying to utilize. I know we have a long way to go, but that was another big takeaway from my seat. So,
and I'd like to kind of reiterate part of what Jeremy talked about, cycles of inquiry, and apply that directly to the teachers who spoke earlier about, the workload and their efforts to provide a strong quality program for their students and the time. And this even, relates to the bell schedule and how long lunch is. The way it's framed in the document is what are the lessons learned in the past? That question suggests that we're done, but we're not, right? So one of our core principles is flexibility, and that means that we're going to continue to learn. So, teachers, I would strongly encourage you to continue talking to your administrators, talk to SEA, because like Jeremy said, they're meeting with them. We're going to continue to meet with them, and it's going to be iterative. Now, we don't have all the flexibility that we want because there are constraints from the state, and we got new constraints from the state just last week around the accountability. So we have to work within that. But I imagine we're going to continue to flex and grow and learn because we don't, part of the, I don't want this to sound corny, but if you think back to the opening day speech, we want everyone to make it over the bridge together. We don't want people getting burned out. We want people to, we've got to come up with something that's sustainable for all teachers, all staff, and all kids, and do the very best that we can while holding everyone together and supporting everyone. So we're going to keep learning, but it's a great question, Michelle.
Thank you, Mike and Mala and Tasha and Jeremy. It was nice to hear those reflections, and thank you for kind of bringing that all together at the end, Mike. Appreciate that. Okay, unless any board members have anything more, I'm going to open the public hearing. We good with that? Let me get back to my agenda. Okay, I opened the public hearing at 8:19. If there is anyone from the public who would like to speak about the LCP, then please use the raise hand feature now. And we'll wait just a moment because depending on the number of hands will determine the amount of time. So wait just a minute. So if anyone would like to speak, then please use the raise hand feature now. it looks like we don't have very many, so we will stick with our regular 3 minutes per person. And Aaliyah, if you could lead that, that'd be great.
Yes, Veronica Galvin, you are up. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. Am I being heard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We hear you.
I just wanted to comment on the lunch issue. It seems that we're trying to solve a problem that we've kind of created ourselves, but with the schedules that we have been given. The required minutes given by California are 240 for 4th grade and up, and we have highly exceeded that number in what we are asking our students to accomplish each day. And as one of the commenters said earlier, we really need to, I believe, we really need to focus as a district on meeting our students' basic needs at this point in time. So as Bridget had mentioned, I don't think that extending the distribution time will solve the issue. We really need to focus on extending the students' time that they have to be able to actually go access the lunches. That's just my comment. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Veronica.
Is that all the comments, Aaliyah, correct?
Looks like.
All right, thank you. We'll wait just another moment in case there's anyone else, and then I will close the public hearing. All right, I closed the public hearing at 8:21. And I just want to say I appreciate, right, that we're all in this together to try to figure out the meals, right? That is definitely a priority for our students. They can't learn if they're not fed. So I'm grateful that it has been worked on, that people are giving more feedback and input, and that we will continue to work on that until we can come up with a solution that works. Okay, board, is there any other questions or comments related to the LCP before we move on? Okay.
Thank you. May I just clarify? So I'm going to have the change. So we're going to bring it back on the 17th for adoption. So we will add in the language of flexibility around the nutrition as the only change to the plan before it gets adopted. Yes?
I believe so. Board, is there anything else that we want adjusted on there? Bridget?
You know, just for as far as nutrition goes, you know, I feel like I feel like we're sort of letting the system of thinking that it's a hot meal midday that everybody wants. And, you know, I know that the food that we would give if we gave it once a week would be different, that it would just be like one hot meal and then frozen entrees or something. But when I think of the pressure and just, you know, I was talking to this mom today at Cherry Chase who was picking up her bags of first grader supply. I said, oh, so, you know, do you have just one kid, or, you know, do you have multiple kids? She said, oh, I just have one first grader. I know a lot of people have a lot more than me, you know, and a lot more going on because they have multiple kids. So I have it easy. She said, but this is really a lot. And she's loading up her bag of first grade supplies, and, you know, on the scooter or bike, I think she's on a bike. And I just felt like, you know, the convenience factor, the more we can make it convenient for families, the more participation we'll have. So if that means that it's a microwavable entree, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that the joy is the hot meal that's preheated for them. I think it's having access to that nutrition that should be the focus. So I know you have to work out your numbers and your hours, but I just wanted to be clear that the pizza pocket already heated is not, you know, the dream. Okay.
So the one other point of clarification, it was a subcontext and may not have been called out, though I saw everybody nodding, was to make sure that the devices that we have employed for the EL group of the Chromebooks will be, whatever devices that we're using for the Chromebooks will be able to accommodate a translation component to it. And I don't know if that has to be in the plan succinctly, but I just want that affirmed.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I think.
I'm looking to Jeremy here to see, like, I know we need to meet the needs of the EL students.
Correct.
I'm a little concerned that might be a little bit prescriptive, and I don't know if that's, maybe it's possible. I don't know. I mean.
Well, I just want that we're going to be meeting their needs, and I want that affirmed. And that's what so I'm saying affirmed rather than specifically.
Yeah. So whether it's language, whether it needs to be language in LCP, or just that idea that the majority of the board feels, I think, right, is on board with that idea, right? That we need to make sure that EL students have the devices that will work for them.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
absolutely.
So since that's not specified in the plan, I'm sure that's an action that can be taken. But
yes, I guess that was going to be my recommendation. You know, Nancy and Bridget and Michelle and Jeff and Reed. Okay, board members. No, so yeah, it's the specific request is being noted, right? And as far as the actual action task implemented, and then maybe Mala, I'll just check in with you, because we could add a general statement to put the deployment of devices in context to you know, meet the needs of instructional needs of so it could be a nice general LCP statement, but then noted on the specific action item you discussed tonight and that was brought up. So
something like that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that good, board?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else before we end this item? All right, and Mala, you have what you need, right? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mala, to you and to, I'm sure many hands came in to help put that together. And I know that's a lot of work on top of actually doing the work. So thank you for that accountability for us in the community. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if there's a whole lot on COVID-19 updates. It's just kind of there as a placeholder. Let's maybe, do we want to take a break right now, or do we want to go through the rest of review and discussion and take a break at 9? Does that work for people if we wait till 9 to take a break?
That's fine for me.
Okay, let's get through the rest of review and discussion then, and then we'll take a break after that. So Dr. Gallagher, do you have a quick comment for the COVID-19 updates? You're on mute.
Okay, so you remember when we committed, I don't remember when it was, in the middle of July, I think, about beginning with all distance learning, or virtual school, as we call it. We said we were gonna take the pulse every couple of weeks to see how long that would be. And our initial commitment was, I think, for just 6 weeks. So what I would like to do is to put on the agenda for next board meeting, the topic again, and I think that would be the time that we would need to discuss extending the period where we're committing to virtual school. And I can tell you that I think there's not going to be much choice, really, even if our county, I got a text that our county may move into the red zone next week, but that our county wouldn't allow in-person school. I also think that one of the things we've learned is that you can't just turn the ship around quickly, right? So now we're on a path That is not an ideal path. It's not the path any of us would choose, but we're on a path now. And I think we have to continue on this path for a while. And it's going to take a lot of planning to turn the ship around to get back to in-person instruction. And I don't think we're very close to that. Most districts around the county have committed to, at the very least, a trimester, if not through the first of the year. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. We're planning another meeting with Reopening Advisory Committee next week, just to kind of hear a lot of things from them, but to hear what the perspectives are. But that's kind of where I'm leaning. And I think we're getting more and more questions, at least in the superintendent's office, and you may be as well, about like, is this going to be extended past 6 weeks? And I think almost certainly it will. And I think, you know, one of the other things we learned is certainty is reassuring to people, even if it's not the certainty that you would choose. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but I thought we'd put that on the agenda for next time as well.
I thought when you were mentioning certainty, you were going to say that nothing is certain in these times.
Yeah, there's no
except for uncertainty.
Yeah. No, but certainty, like there was a huge sigh of relief throughout our whole community when we said we're going to go to all distance learning, even though a lot of people didn't want that at that time. But at least like, okay, now we know. So we'll work with that.
So rather than certainty, I would say continuity of structure.
Okay. Yeah.
But I appreciate that.
Yeah. And again, once we decide, and I don't know when this will be, but once we decide it's time to turn the ship around and go back to in-person instruction, and I mean full in-person instruction, that's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take, it's just going to take a lot of work. It's not just going to be a light switch that we switch.
Thank you. And I just want to, I know I've kind of said this repeatedly. Well, I know it's going to probably be a while before we have the bulk of students coming back in person, even in a hybrid model. I very strongly, we need a few, right? The students who this is a disaster for right now and the families it's a disaster for, we need to get those students in as soon as possible, right? And even if it's really small groups. So I just want to, I know I've said it before, but just how strongly I feel that if we don't provide that service as soon as possible, then we are doing a disservice for some who their health is worse, not being in person. So I just want to.
I would second that. I completely agree.
What'd you say, Jeff?
So I would second that. I completely agree.
Mala, do you want to talk just a little bit about our initial plans? We're building on the foundation we've laid and then what the next step is.
Yes, absolutely. So I couldn't agree more, Michelle and Jeff, and I'm sure all of you agree, all of us agree, that's the most critical thing we can do as soon as we can do it as safely as possible, right? So we want to have those measures in place. So just, was it just yesterday or the day before, we had a meeting with the Title I principals, the 4 schools. We're thinking of starting small, looking at, you know, we identified who the students would be, how many staff we need to start on a really small basis of 14 students, 2 staff members. Those are the guidelines, how we would identify them. So the state guidelines are without a waiver, that's a cohort we can have, you know, with a focused need for observing either English learners, students with disabilities, students who are not accessing this remote learning for whatever reason, family needs. So those are the students, and the principals are absolutely on board with going about the process. So we've started the wheels in motion, and we have a tentative, you know, timeline established, and the work is starting. So we're exploring what that would look like with a very safe rollout for a small group.
Thank you for that update.
Mala, what's the timeline? Like, what do you think in terms of a timeline for that, since it is allowed at this point?
It is allowed. So we've pushed it 4 weeks from now is what we're thinking would be reasonable, given the fact that we want to identifying the students is one thing, but making sure we are in touch with all the families so that they are willing to bring their students. So if you can imagine, these are families that we haven't been able to engage, sites haven't been able to engage with them. So it would take even twice the effort or more. And then of course, making sure we have the staff on board who are willing and able to come back to support the students, and starting really small. So it's not, a huge number, looking at what that safety protocol looks like, in the school, mapping out the whole day. So it's a very successful launch that would encourage the teachers who are on campus and, even the families who see that, how it can be done in a safe way. Bridget, you had a question?
Yeah, I was trying to use my mouse, but I'm on a different, it's not working. So are you talking about instruction or are you talking about supervision?
Supervision. Thank you for the clarification. Instruction is not permitted at this point without a waiver, but supervision is.
So they would still have their classroom teacher, but they would be
regular virtual classroom teacher. They would be tuned in, and they would be physically supervised. So they would, make sure they're there, getting a little bit of support, getting some tech help, getting their meals, having some, time to stretch and move and get back to learning. So basically being available to learn.
Mm-hmm. So then you could have multiple ages there. Yes. That's the issue, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, yes.
Thank you for that question, Bridget. All right, anything else related to that? Okay, we are now on to item 7C, the equity reflection. So Reed is leading. So just to share out, we have decided we wanted to add once a month, we'll have this equity reflections time. So it's not a long conversation, but at least kind of gets the conversation going on various topics related to equity. And we'll kind of take turns on, who's leading it. And it might be a video, it might be an article, it might be a podcast. To just, yeah, Bridget.
Question, do you want to show the video? Because it's only 4 minutes. It's under, maybe it's a little.
Yeah, we're gonna show it, Bridget.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Reed is leading today, so I'll turn it over to Reed now. Thank you, Reed.
Okay, thanks. So I got so inspired because a fellow board member was asking, I'm on the annual education convention committee, and a fellow board member was saying, oh my gosh, we had the most amazing speaker. Can you see about whether or not we could get this person to speak at one of the next upcoming conferences? And so she sent me this video clip, and it was so inspiring, and I was so excited. I sent it out to the board, and I know Mike sent it out to the cabinet as well. But it's a guy named Patrick Briggs, who is the director for AVID in the Northeast. And so he's obviously very passionate about equity. And I think that this video sort of speaks for itself, but I would love to have us all watch it together, and for the people that are watching to be able to see it. And then we can have a little discussion about just, I was just thinking about, A, what are our thoughts on it? B, like, what are we doing now to help these kids? What's working? What's not working? Obviously, we have a lot of work to do. And I'm just wondering what you guys think of the analogy. It's called A Tale of $2. So I think you all will like it. And Aaliyah and Jesus have it all ramped up to go. So sit back, relax. Jeff, turn off your video, and we'll watch this thing for 4 minutes. Are you guys ready? Thanks.
Tale of $2. I got $2 here. Don't get excited. They're leaving with me. I know a lot of times you go to conferences and they say, oh, I got $2. Ah! No, you're with me. $2. Now, how much is this dollar worth? Let's go with $1. Well, how much is this one worth? $1. So what I'm hearing you tell me is that these $2 have the same value and they have the same worth. Now, let me take this one, ball it up. Now, how much is this one worth? $1. How much is this one worth? So what I'm hearing you tell me is that they have the same value and the same worth. Now, let me take this one and drop it on the ground. Let me step on it. Let me abuse it. Let me treat it like it's not worth anything. Let me spit on it. Now, how much is this one worth? How much is this one worth? So what I'm hearing you tell me is that they have the same value and the same worth. Now, which one of them are you going to give the opportunity, and which one do you expect to get into Coke Machine University? See, there's no achievement gap between these $2. You told me they have the same value and the same worth. But see, one of them is going to get several opportunities to get in that Coke machine. Come on, baby, I need this Diet Coke. You going in there. I might feed him in 4 or 5 times before I even think about this here one. You're not worth it. I'm not going to even try. I might even smooth out a corner on this one. Come on, baby, I got to have that caffeine. You going in this machine. I'm going to work with this one for quite a while because I'm giving him the opportunity that that one doesn't have. And I'm giving him the expectation that that one doesn't have. But this here one should have the opportunity. And we should expect him to get into Coke Machine University. But the only way to do that is to do the equity work. Because this here one, I might have to unroll him. I might have to straighten out his corners. I might have to build a relationship. I love you, and I got to have that Diet Coke. Might put him over my knee and smooth him out. I might have to do a whole lot of work, but if I do that, great teachers did that for me. They saw me for that wrinkled up, spit on, stepped on dollar and said, Patrick, you can go to college. And I expect you to go, and I'm giving you the opportunity to go. Because I know statistically where I would be if it wasn't for great educators who saw me as that wrinkled up, balled up, stepped on, spit on dollar and treated me with the expectations and didn't give me the opportunity that this one has, because I had the same value and the same worth.
So powerful. I think I've seen it 4 times, and every time it's so powerful. And I just kind of, what do you guys think of that analogy, and how does that make you feel? And I guess I'll talk to the board first, and then I'd love to involve Mala and Tasha and Jeremy and all of you as well.
So when I saw the video, I thought about the work that we have been doing. The journey of the crumpled dollar is also us. We have to unpack ourselves and unpack the images and the thoughts and the learnings that we've had to crumple our thoughts and ideas about who people are and what they can achieve. So to me, that in addition to the individuals that we're working with, it's the individual work that we need to do in order to be ready for utilizing everyone to their best capacity. And I also thought, it's the machine. What are we doing that with the machine, that there's only one right way of getting into there? How can we provide more flexibility in what we're doing structurally, programmatically to change the paradigm of there's only one right way. So those are my kind of thoughts.
So deep, Nancy. That's tough. That's deep. Good stuff. Wow. I like it. Anybody else?
Well, I think that I hadn't thought about the machine in the way Nancy had said it, or the dollar bill crumpled as us, right? Unpacking ourselves, which were interesting. But I do think, like, if you look at the machine as like the bigger system, not like here in our district, but getting into college or whatever you want that system to be, I feel a little bit like we can't change that system, right? Like we as individuals can work on it, but I feel like we can't really change that. Like that's not where we have the control. And so I liked his analogy of the dollar bill needs to get in there. So what can we control? We can do things to help smooth out the dollar bill to get it into the machine. Well, I like that idea of let's change the system. And I think if you're using the system, like what Nan said, if you're using the system comparing to our district, then yes, we need to change our district system. But if the system, the Coke machine, is the bigger world that we can't directly change, right? There's different ways to look at it, right? But so either way, it's still the same thing of like changing what we can change in our realm, right? And figuring that out. It was interesting because when you first sent that read, it was either the same day or within a day of a webinar I had gone to about, I don't remember the title, but it was essentially right about racism and education. And kind of just the systemic problems. And one of the notes I took from that webinar that I watched, but my notes were the same, like from watching the video, and that was all within a day or two. But one of the things one of the people had said was, oh, I just lost it. The children are not a problem to be fixed. They're children to be truly valued as much as any other child. And so it just very much connects with that idea. And like at that webinar, I talked again about that idea that, which is interesting. So as I'm just thinking out loud. So as I think about that, if it's not the children need to be fixed, then we don't need to fix the dollar. We do need to fix the system. I don't know, right? Like, interesting. I'm thinking out loud here.
Good job.
It's okay. I mean, I feel as though, he was a great speaker. He used humor, he really draws his audience in. But he did such a great job of communicating the anger and the urgency and the violence, the absolute violence of life and the system and racism and the danger of low expectations. And, I thought he was very inspirational, but he wasn't inspirational in that, like, oh, I feel better now. He was inspirational in that, like, I feel he's definitely talking to the educators. You could tell that he was talking to people who work with the culturally responsive, trauma-informed, anti-racist mindset, the AVID program that we have in our middle school that I hope one day we adopt in our elementary school, and just the other training that we do in general, and the work that we're doing. So I felt like it was very motivating, but not in a comfortable way. Like, it makes me want to, it highlights the urgency for me. I mean, today in the news, there was another situation of a murder that was revealed, and of a Black man, and who, with a bag on his head, and was killed by police officers. And it's just we have to intentionally work on this, and I'm excited that we are. And I was so disappointed that the person who spoke earlier felt like we were giving ourselves like only reflecting on the great things that we're doing, because I I do think that we are pushing forward, but I love the video because of the energy of it and the focus on the dignity and personal worth of the individual and of the student. So, yeah.
Wow, Jeff.
So I hear what Bridget's saying, and I agree. I mean, I very entertaining and analogy, and I really appreciate Nancy's. I didn't think about the machine analogy part of that one, so that was interesting. I get a little. I think as you know, putting an educator hat on, I get a little uncomfortable when I hear these speakers because I think they have me already at seeing the value between the two students. I know, you know, racism is a kind of a secret thing. I mean, this quiet thing is not as in your face as often. I get that part, but I don't think I've met a teacher that wouldn't say that student is worthless. I mean, I think sometimes the way they communicate, you get that out of there. But I think when you go deep into what's saying is there's a lot of frustration. So what I'm getting to is I think a lot of our teachers want to know the how. How do you uncrumple that bill? You know, because I hear that all the time. It's like, you need to reach out to these students. Okay, how? How do I make those connections? How do I do that when I have, you know, the cultural barriers, the trauma that I have to dive deep into, which, by the way, there's nothing in my educational practice that's prepared me to dive into how to heal them from trauma. You know, I mean, trauma-based instruction is great, but that doesn't do the work on how do you overcome that. You know, I think there's a lot of support that needs to go into that too. You know, and there's a lot of work. And I think the whole point the speaker's saying is it's worth the work because there's value there. But I think our society ultimately with some of these, you know, like I think most of us on the board have seen this with the recession. What's one of the first things to go, right? I mean, we go to the bare minimums of providing that public education, and yet we still have the achievement gap. And yeah, it's just, I guess that's kind of frustrating to me. I mean, it's not a pretty, it's not a feel good analogy. It's not meant to be. And the immediacy is right. But, you know, and going back to the speaker, I believe Gray, I know, you know, I'm interested in what's crumpled, you know, the hate that dollar, that person encountered. And I don't want to be a part of an institution that's responsible for that at all. And I think our organization is trying to go a little deeper. And I know we were talking about anti-racism. I like to think that we're going deeper than that. If we need to call it out, you know, put that in a verbiage, I'd be interested in knowing what the expectation is. What would we like as a community to hear on that, to call it out? Because I'm looking to call it out. You know, and I know we don't want to add more. I mean, we want to be directive. We want to be able to be clear with our expectation. And I think we're holding ourselves to the high value. I mean, sometimes I chastise myself for losing some opportunities because I think a lot of, you know, like I said, this whole COVID business crisis is crumpling up a lot of people. You know, I'd like to get them back in the classrooms as soon as possible to get that socio-emotional, that routine that many of our students need, the everyday friendly face, the place to go, the connection to community. But it's frustrating because I want to know the why behind it. And I want to be assured that we're not a part of it. And if we are, I want to hunt that out and then eliminate it. But I want to know how to prepare. And I think all of our teachers do, you know, and I want to provide the resources to support that too, because I don't think anybody can do that alone.
Wow. Thanks, Jeff. Gosh. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Who
I just want to say real fast. I loved that piece that Jeff shared about we as an education system, right? We want to make sure that we're not doing anything to crumple anybody, right? That was a piece I hadn't thought of, and I like that. I like that piece. Thank you, Jeff.
Tasha, you have your thing off. Your mute off. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I know we're short on time, but I wanted to give a personal example because, you know, I want to get more and more from theory and a plan. And so I want to share an experience my son had in 3rd grade to resonate what the presenter on the video was speaking to. And the teacher didn't mean harm. She thought she was doing a really good thing for my son. And to make this story even sweeter, it's one of my son's favorite teachers, okay? And so when he was in 3rd grade, there was another African-American boy that was in his classroom. And this young boy, I knew the kid, I've seen him. He had many names over my educational career, but he acted out. He was loud, he was disruptive, he was sometimes aggressive. He was very fond of my son. They had a good relationship. They did a lot of things together. He had more difficulty in the classroom. A lot of other students in the classroom didn't like him. I could go on and on with some of the behaviors this particular young boy had. He had parents who were a little less engaged, who didn't maybe have the skills they needed to advocate and talk about what they needed for their son, to engage the teacher, to help them to be better parents, to help him to be a better student. That was very evident. My educational background and just my experiences. And so one day we were at the campus and my husband and I and the teacher very explicitly told us, you may want to keep your son away from this young man because he's not going to amount to anything. And the further you can keep your son away from this young boy, the better it is for your son. Your son's a very bright young boy. He's doing very good. And this person can only influence him to not be very successful in life. So this is a great teacher, I'm going to say. She's exceptional. And she thought she was doing a really good thing by sharing that with us. But what that lets me know is that if you don't quite fit the bill, though, for this teacher, no matter how good she is disrupting many kids over her educational career. And so that's the piece that happens and we don't see it because it's a sidebar conversation. It may not be blatant in the classroom when you walk into it, but it's about the mindset. It's about changing that mindset. And so as we do this equity work, my passion for this work is I don't want to pass a policy. I don't want to write a plan. I want to take action. I want to hold people accountable when I see that they're being racist, sexist, or whatever the case might be. And so I just wanted to share that because it's a personal experience, and I have so many of them, and no one they thought they were doing a good thing. But the reality is it was good for my son, maybe, or maybe not, but it was definitely not good for the student who was in question that day.
Thanks, Tasha. Mike, you took off your mute.
Yeah, I'm gonna, if Jeremy or Mala wants to go first, if they have anything. If they don't, that's okay.
That's really powerful, Tasha. I think personal experiences are really what, make this come to light. And just talking about the video a little bit, I see how, it's very visible when you see someone crumpling and stamping on and, making all those overt gestures. But let's not forget in the work that we're doing, all the microaggressions, the minuscule microaggressions and conversations and looks and glances and comments that we make that lead up to as severe a consequence as something as obvious as stomping on someone. It equates to the same thing, but sometimes we overlook it because it's just one word or it's just a comment or it's just something, and we give the adults the benefit of the doubt. But I just want to bring that out there as something for us to be aware of. So really, the more work we can integrate with this anti-racism and examining personal biases, in the work of equity. I don't think we can underplay the importance of that.
Did I use all my time, or can I say more?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I really appreciate Natasha's story as well. I mean, in my last job, I was responsible for seeing students with, involved in the worst decisions they made, and still you try to provide them with the respect and trying to work them up and bring them back into the community. I think the biggest growing pains that I had in that role wasn't working with the student and wasn't trying to extend the patience. I wasn't perfect, but I mean, I was able to do that pretty well. But it was the other parents that became aware, and I'm highly sensitive to like the administrators on the site. It becomes almost like a political thing when you're thinking about discipline on the school, because that label of bad kid, or it's just it travels, and that's big work for the school as well. Is how do you protect the student for that social stigma, and allow them to be a part of the community and make them still feel like school's a safe place. But
Mike, were you gonna add something?
Yes, I have a little story. So I don't know how many of you were in California, and I think it was 1978. If you were living in California in 1978. Okay, so Nancy was and Jeff was. So you won't remember this maybe as vividly as I will, but you know that I'm a child of teachers. I come from a family of teachers. And in 1978, I was in the 8th grade, and the biggest ballot proposition at that year was Proposition 6. And Proposition 6 would have banned gay people from being teachers in the state of California. And 42% of Californians voted for that. Okay. So if I think back to that Coke machine, I was being taught from that time, you better straighten out if you want to get in the Coke machine. So I was seeing that analogy a little bit differently. And so I did that, and I actually could, right? I can pass. I could do that. And so that allowed me to get through life, but it wasn't good for me. It wasn't healthy for me. And so I don't want LGBT kids to feel like they have to fit in a mold, that they have to straighten out to fit into the machine. I don't want kids with disabilities to feel that way. I don't want kids with behavior issues to feel that way. So that's our work. So, I mean, I'm fortunate that I got to be where I am right now, but in 1978, no way, right? So that's how I saw the analogy. And I think we need to acknowledge that in this agenda, we could have gone through the motions of taking a thoughtful approach to the LCP, gone through that, talked about COVID, gone right on to the budget, and gotten out of here quick. But we didn't. We took this pause. So I think the value of these moments is that we're sharing and we're reflecting, and we're being vulnerable too, which I think is really important. It's hard to, as a white male, it's hard to say it right. I think they said that maybe last time. But we're all giving each other some grace along the way in our journey. I really appreciate what Tasha says about, and we talked about this very briefly before, we need to be, like I have a desire to be thoughtful, to do a good plan and to not just do things on the surface and move on, but there's also urgency, like Gray mentioned, and like Tasha just said. So I think we're all passionate about this, but we've got to develop a good plan, and we've got to take action. So those are my thoughts.
Oh, wow. I mean, I saw this and I loved it and I was so happy to share it, but I never anticipated like the awesome depth of conversation and thoughts. Not that I shouldn't have anticipated that, but I just appreciate you all so much for all your amazing thoughts, every single one of you. And I just, again, I just feel so thankful that we all care so much. And for me, I mean, I think the part of that video that stuck with me the most is that, you know, the unrolling of the dollar bill and the flattening it and him saying that he was that dollar bill and a teacher did that for him. And it always makes me think about how every one of us can make a difference in somebody's life just by believing in them and by believing that they're capable of doing things that they might not believe that they're capable of. And our teachers have that opportunity. All of you have the opportunity. I have that opportunity. That's where it feels so good to be able to, you know, be in these kids' lives as much as we can and tell them that their worth is there and that they're valued. And I just think if we can tell all of our kids that they're valued, literally like tell them you are valued, I think that's so important, because when you talk to anyone that's overcome, it's always about, I didn't believe in myself, you know, so-and-so didn't believe in me, but then someone came along and believed in me. And so I just feel just appreciative right now. So thank you all so much. Wow. We have a break now, right? We can all dry our eyes.
Yeah, thank you, Reed, for leading that discussion. That was a great start to our equity reflections. Thank you, everyone, for sharing, especially Tasha and Mike, for your vulnerability and sharing personal stories. I echo what Reed said, right? And I think all of us would, right? This was a powerful discussion, which we all, I'm sure, could, again, talk for hours. But it's just a moment, like what Mike said, right? A moment to pause and reflect on these things that are so important to us. Okay, thank you, everybody. Yes, we will take a 5-minute break. It's 9:06 right now, so 9:11, 9:12, and then we will come back to our review and action items. So see you all in 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. More annoying, I turned the light on so it's not dark in the back, but I have a light above my head. So is my current setup more weird, or is the all dark more weird? It's okay?
It's all good.
Okay.
You look a little saintly.
You look like you have a halo.
Oh gosh, this side, here we go. Okay.
The halo, if it went the other way, it would be even more dramatic, but it does look like a little like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird. That's why I was kind of asking, like, it's either all dark or that. Okay, all board members. Yes, we're all here. Okay, I reconvene our meeting at literally just changed right now, 9:13. We are on to review and action 8A, the approval of the 2019-2020 GAN limit. Lori.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. This is something that we do every single year, and it's part of our state constitution. The GAN limit is actually calculated automatically by the state software. And it was established in 1979 to constrain local spending by linking year-over-year expenditures to ADA changes. And once again, because of our robust property tax growth, we've exceeded our GAN limit by $5,159,476.70. And this will be the basis for the calculation for 2021. So with that, I ask for your approval.
Do you want to go ahead and make a motion, Michelle?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the 2019-2020 GAN limit.
Second.
Board, is there any questions or comments? Public, is there any questions or comments? All right, not seeing any. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. We are now on to 8B, approval of the annual unaudited actuals financial report for the fiscal year 2019-2020. And it's Lori again.
Okie dokie. I'm not very tech savvy, so hopefully y'all can see my screen. So if it's all good, I will move forward.
Looks great.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Do we need a motion or no?
No.
Not yet. Okay, just a few highlights of the closing of 1920. Our LCFF, EPA, and parcel tax came in as projected at $5.4 million. Our property tax revenue increased by $5.4 million also over 1819. That's a property tax growth of 7%. Our RDA came in at $3.3 million, which was a $525,000 increase over the prior year. In 1920, we received our one-time SB 117 COVID LEA response funds of $111.3 thousand. And we are using that to pay for hotspots for our families in our community and for electric static sprayers as part of our disinfecting process. Expenditures in 1920 increased to $102.5 million, which is a $300,000 increase over 1819. We have modest cost increases this year because of the situation, but we did have increases in salary schedule of 4%. We did have STRS and PERS increases, but we also had some decreases in utilities, and we had a slowing of purchases of materials and equipment as well as contracted services, and we had a decline in routine maintenance projects, so there was less of a contribution to our routine maintenance fund. Contributions and transfers out increased $807,000 in 1920 over 1819, due in part to an increase of $41,000 to support our student nutrition program, and it increased support of $115,000 for our child state preschool program. Our routine maintenance contribution, like I said previously, did decrease by $420,000. The contribution to state special education was $14 million in 1920, which was a $1.17 million increase over 1819, and the contribution to our staff computer refresh decreased by $99,000. So when I close the books every year, we are one of the few districts where we revise the budgets. So based on current information, I revised the 2021 budget. Our property taxes are projected to increase 7% over 1920, which is a $4.3 million increase. Our LCFF, EPA, and parcel tax funds have a slight decrease over 1920 for a total of combined total of $4.9 million. The 2021 budget includes some CARES Act funding for the Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief Fund of $429,000, and we use this to purchase student devices. And based on current information, our charter school in lieu tax payments for Summit Public Charter and Rocket Ship are budgeted at $675,000. And due to a decrease in our free and reduced numbers and an increase in staffing costs, our child nutrition and child development programs both need a contribution of $649,000. Special education contribution is projected at $14.2 million. And also included in the budget are 2% salary schedule increases and person STRS increases. So this is the multi-year look at the ratio of revenue to expense. In 1920, our ending balance was up $3.3 million. And in 2021, our projected revenue is $105.6 million, which is a $112,000 decrease over 1920. Our 2021 expenditures are projected $103.3 million, which is an $841,000 increase over 1920. And based on the assumptions in the revised budget, our ending balance is projected to increase by $2.3 million in 2021. This is also a multi-year look at beginning ending balances. The increase in the fund ending balance in 1920 is driven by one-time funds and expenditure decreases due to school closures. And we also have a lot of large restricted carryovers, one of them being restricted lottery. 2021 ending balance, we upped the increase from the adoption budget. We originally projected a 5% increase in our property tax revenue, and it's now up to 7%, which is a $1.5 million growth. So this is a overall look at our unrestricted reserves, which is a combination of the unrestricted ending balance, unassigned balance, and the special reserve fund in 17. We ended 1920 with a $24.4 million unrestricted reserve and meeting the required 20% of the board policy. And 2021, we are projected based on current assumptions to end the year at 25.5%. So just a quick summary to wrap up. Our 1920 general fund ending balance was $11.3 million. The special reserve ending balance was $13.1 million for total unrestricted reserves of 23.8%, which is just a little bit above the required 20%. The multi-year projections all have positive ending balances, and we will maintain our basic aid status. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lori. We can do a motion now.
I'll do it. I found it. I recommend that we approve the annual financial report SACS unaudited actuals, which contains the unaudited actuals for fiscal year 2019-20.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Now we'll open up for public comment. If there's any public comment on this agenda item, please use the raise hand feature now. We'll give it just a moment in case there's anyone. All right, I'm not seeing anyone. Aaliyah, you're not seeing anyone. So raise hand, are you? Okay, board, is there any questions or comments? Reed?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just keep being stunned that, you know, we're doing okay right now. Lori, what do you anticipate? When do you anticipate we'll kind of feel this backlash of everything that's happening in the world? And do you think property taxes are going to still stay? I mean, it has to eventually catch up to us, but I'm so thankful that in the midst of everything, it's good.
I would think so. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I am projecting a minimal growth in the 2 out years. So for 21, 22, and 22, 23, it takes
minimal growth, but still growth.
1%. I mean, that's what I'm thinking, because it takes about 18 months for properties that are reassessed to hit the AB rolls. So I think we're in a good position this year, but I think we still need to be cautious and plan savings for future years when there may be a.
Wow.
But what about, like we've been hearing from, there's a lot of discussion in some of the SCC, SBA meetings about property taxes being paid to us when they're collected and not when they're due. Like we're not being fronted them anymore.
No, we are. The county of Santa Clara still has the teeter plan in place, which means regardless of who pays their taxes and when they pay them, we still get paid. Now, if the county decides to repeal that, then it's a whole new game and I'll have to go back to square one and start planning all over again.
So we still have that. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Nancy, did you have a question?
No, it was just, it was more discussion that the teeter plan might be removed at some point in time in a more immediate time frame than theoretically they could do that just because of county cash flow.
Right.
So.
Michelle, you probably saw that there's a public that has comment. I don't know if you want to go back if the board is done.
If the board's okay, we can go take the one comment. Board, we're good with that, yeah? Aaliyah, do you want to take that public comment, please?
Yes, Vivek. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. My question is really, I'm Vivek. I have a second grader in Ellis. My question is really towards more of a layman translation to the budget. As I sit here and I kind of went through your 158 pages of budget documents and all, and some specific summaries you guys have uploaded on the website. I'm not sure if anybody in the public truly understands the meaning of these trends, even as you compare to last year. I mean, this is really, we are in a luxury here in the Bay Area as we see the country suffer from a sharp drops in tax revenues going into this school year and added expenses to cater to COVID requirements. We here in Bay Area are really blessed almost in terms of revenue holding healthy. So if we look at the numbers proposed, right, the state's contribution has gone down, but more than made up by the local taxes that have increased by, by some percentage. So question as a public from you guys is, what does it really mean, right? Are we really still doing any surgical cuts to any programs? If yes, which ones and why? And if not, then how are we making sure that our steady budget this year really reflects what we have the needs for this coming year, right? These are the kind of discussions that I think we should be holding at least once a year, giving more context to this budget numbers rather than reporting out just the numbers. Otherwise, we are really not just going back to that core values that you guys were mentioning, right? Equity, transparency, accountability. Showing and discussing the budget in open forums like these will become more useful if we can provide the impact, especially in these difficult times that we are going through. So finally, my question is really, what can we know and when can we know what this budget means, either in some sort of a writing on your website or verbally through you guys in any of the upcoming board meetings?
Thank you. So I will share that this is not the budget being approved. The budget approval happens in May and June of each year. So you could go back and look through the budget that we approved for 2020, 2021. When I finish my thoughts, maybe someone on staff can direct where we can find that on the website. This is approval of the annual unaudited actuals. So it's just before it gets audited, the budget that we had from 19-20 school year, laying out what it actually ended up being. I think hopefully I'm explaining that well. Maybe Lori can jump in on that part too, and then someone can share where people can look at. So then also I would just offer that again in May and June is when we have discussions about the upcoming budget and money, and I think that might be a good opportunity maybe when you're referring to. Okay, staff, you could share out as well, please.
Michelle, you're absolutely correct. We are approving the year-end financials as compared to what we thought they were a year ago. The adopted budget that was approved in June is on the business services page of the website under 2021 adopted budget, and there's a whole narrative that is included in that budget.
Thank you, Lori.
And I guess I could offer as a big picture. So our board has in its policy a mandated 20% reserve, which is very wise given the way we're funded. And I know board, you know this, but so for Vivek and any of the others, our revenue is primarily from local property taxes as opposed to many other school districts, which get a good portion of theirs from the state. We get very little from the state. And so we're entering into this period in a strong position because we've grown our reserve to about 25%. So we're above our mandated reserve. And so we've got a head of steam going in. However, the problem with districts that are funded such as we are is that the hit to property taxes comes about a year later. Traditionally in a recession, it comes about a year later. So when Lori mentioned that she's projecting 1% and 1% for the out years, even though that's a revenue growth, we can expect our expenses in a typical year to be in excess of 1%. So that's a built-in deficit. So if her projection occurs 1% and 1% in the out years, that would mean that we'd be drawing down our additional 5% reserve, and we don't know how close it would get to 20% or below. So, and then the fortunate thing that we have going for us in a weird kind of way is that our declining enrollment should allow us to reduce our expenses. So we actually did that pretty substantially heading into this year. We were able to reduce teaching FTE, and that saved us a considerable amount of money moving into this year. So that's kind of a big summary of it. And as Lori said, at the beginning of a budget, which can be found on the website, there's a sort of a layman's description of the ins and outs of the budget.
Thank you, Mike and Lori. And I have one question that maybe actually kind of got answered by our increase in our reserves. I just noticed, I think we were projecting at the beginning of last year a 1 or 2 million surplus, but it looked like we had a little bit over 4 million in surplus at the end of this 19-20 year. And so I was just curious, what is all of that going into the reserve? Are we using any of that for one-time expenditures? Just kind of curious about where that 4 million is going.
Well, part of the ending balance in the unrestricted general fund, I set aside for carryovers. So of that ending balance, almost $1.6 million of that is carryover funds that have already been rebudgeted in 2021. And we did end up with a higher ending balance, but it's, due to the lights weren't on as much, or we didn't use as much water, we didn't purchase as many instructional materials, or we didn't have as many contracted services. So without spending that money that we had planned to, our ending balance is going to go up. But if we were in a normal year, we would have spent those dollars and our ending balance would have been less.
Can you help me understand that first part when you were talking about carryover? I didn't quite understand what that is.
So we have certain funds where carryover is allowed. For example, the school sites get a technology allocation every year, and what they don't spend this year, they get to carry over to next year. And every school has a discretionary fund for office supplies or toner cartridges or, one-off classroom supplies. So what they don't spend gets carried over and rebudgeted next year and in the subsequent year. So there's many, many funds like that. And for example, restricted lottery, we had a high ending balance, but I carry that forward into the next year to spend on textbooks in the next year. So stuff like that.
Okay, so some of that 4 million that was surplus is just being carried over so we can use it in this next year. Okay, right. Got it. Thanks for helping explain all that to me. Appreciate it. Board, any other questions or comments?
I was going to say that we have done well by projecting budgets revenues conservatively because it makes it less likely that we'll have surprises. And we are in a fortunate place where we have not had to do any layoffs, but what we've looked at is a natural attrition as teachers retire. We don't necessarily rehire. We rehire based on what our current numbers are. And so being in a declining enrollment phase, we're just more mindful about our numbers and how many teachers we actually need to hire moving forward. And I thank Jeremy for dealing with a lot of those internal plannings about that.
Okay, board, are we ready to vote? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion is passed. Thank you so much, Lori. On behalf of all the board, we appreciate all the work that you and your staff do, and we appreciate what a great job that you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now on to item number 9, the consent agenda items.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as listed. If nobody wants to pull anything.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we need to ask that before the motion, right? So is there
Well,
anyone?
Somebody doesn't have to agree with my motion. Okay.
That's true, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, public, is there any comments on consent agenda items? If you have any comments, please use the raise hand feature now. Giving it just a moment. All right, not seeing any board. Is there any questions or comments? All right, I have just one question for the Santa Clara County Office of Ed, the interpretation or interpreting agreement. I'm curious, it looked like the contract maybe just said there's English to Spanish translation, but will it also include Spanish to English translation?
Yes, it will.
Nodding yes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So it will include both ways, even though it didn't specify that in there. Okay, just wanted to. Great, thank you. Okay, board, are we ready to vote? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. With that, the motion passes. We are now on to item 10, public comments on closed session items. So again, if the public wishes to speak on any closed session items, please use the raise hand feature now. And not seeing any. We're good going straight to closed session, right? Without a break? Yes? Okay. I adjourn to closed session at 9:37. I assume we will not see most people when we come back. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being partners in the education of all of our children. And then I will see some of you in closed session in just a moment. Thanks. I was like trying to click that so many times. Sorry. Apparently the computer's tired now too. All right, I reconvene to open session at 10:11. In closed session, we discussed conference with labor negotiator SEA and CSEA. No action was taken. And our next meeting will be on Thursday, September 17th at 7 p.m. In the same Zoom platform. And with that, I adjourn our meeting at 10:11.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.